There is a strange feeling that most people in cities know but rarely name. You are standing in a crowd of hundreds. Trains rush past. Buildings rise on every side. And somehow, in all of that noise and movement, you feel completely invisible. That feeling has a history, a very long one. For most of human existence, hundreds of thousands of years, a person never stood in a crowd of strangers. Everyone around you had a name, a face you recognized, a story you knew. The group you belonged to was small, maybe 30 or 50 people at most, and every single one of them mattered to your survival. Then something shifted. Roughly 10,000 years ago, humans began farming. And farming changed everything. Not immediately, not dramatically, but slowly and permanently. When you can grow food instead of chase it, you stop moving. You build something permanent. You stay. And when enough people stay in one place, something new appears in human history. A city. The earliest cities grew in places like ancient Mesopotamia, in the land between two rivers in what is now Iraq. Places like Uruk and Eridu began swelling with populations that no human group had ever seen before. First hundreds, then thousands, eventually tens of thousands of people living packed together in a dense, permanent settlement. This was not a natural thing for a human body or a human mind to experience. Think about what the first city dwellers actually encountered. Noise that never stopped. Smells that no forest had ever produced. Strangers everywhere. Faces that carried no history, no trust, no tribal bond. In a small foraging group, your brain could track everyone. You knew who was generous and who was selfish. You knew who to trust in a crisis. You knew exactly where you stood. In a city of 10,000 people, that system broke down. The human mind, shaped by millions of years of small group living, suddenly had to navigate something it was never designed for. And so humans invented something entirely new to fill the gap. Rules, hierarchies, priests, kings, written records, laws. These were not luxuries. They were urgent repairs. When a group grows beyond what personal trust can hold together, it needs systems to replace that trust. And the first cities built those systems quickly. Grain storage managed by temples, labor organized by administrators, disputes settled by written codes. The Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest written legal systems, came directly from this pressure. Not from philosophy, from crowd management. But here is something that often gets lost in the history of early cities. They were not clean, prosperous utopias. The archaeological record tells a harder story. Early city dwellers were, on average, shorter than their foraging ancestors. Their bones showed signs of nutritional stress. Disease spread through dense populations in ways that small mobile groups had rarely experienced. Living close to animals introduced new illnesses into human bodies. Living close to each other meant those illnesses moved fast. Sanitation was poor. Overcrowding was real. And unlike the open landscape a foraging group could simply leave behind, a city held you in place. Social hierarchy sharpened in cities too. In a small foraging band, extreme inequality was difficult to maintain. You could not hoard much when the group moved constantly. But in a city, with grain stores and permanent property, wealth could accumulate. And it did. The archaeological evidence from early urban sites shows clear divisions. Larger homes, richer burials, better nourishment, for those at the top of the new social order. So why did people keep coming? Because cities also offered something real. A city wall meant protection in a way a single shelter never could. Specialization meant that not everyone had to do everything. Some people became potters, some became weavers, some became healers. That division of labor, for all its complications, produced knowledge and craft at a level that isolated groups could rarely match. Cities created the conditions for writing, mathematics, medicine, and architecture. When enough minds occupy one place, sharing problems and observations across generations, ideas accumulate. Progress compounds. The institutions that modern humans depend on, hospitals, schools, legal systems, organized trade, none of them exist without the city as their origin point. But the cost was real, and it was paid in ways that were quiet and hard to measure. The anonymity of city life was one of them. In a small group, being known was survival. Being seen, named, included, these things kept you alive and psychologically whole. In a city, you could live surrounded by thousands and be truly known by almost none of them. That was a new kind of human experience, and the mind did not adjust easily. Early city dwellers left behind evidence of religious temples used not just for worship, but for communal gathering, shared meals, public rituals, seasonal festivals. These were not decorative customs. They were attempts to recreate, at city scale, something that small group life had always provided naturally, a feeling of belonging to something shared. Thousands of years later, humans are still building those same structures. Stadiums, concerts, public squares filled with festivals. The need that drove ancient Mesopotamians to crowd into a temple courtyard is the same need that fills modern arenas every weekend. The shape of the gathering has changed. The hunger behind it has not. The city gave humans civilization. It gave them medicine, law, art, coordination, and eventually the connected modern world they inhabit today. But the first thing it quietly took was the feeling of being somewhere that everyone knew your name. And in some ways, every crowded room that still feels empty is a small echo of that very first trait.